to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Let me remind you of the indispensable required reading to understand what's going on around you. That would be Obama, the Postmodern Coup, The Making of a Manchurian Candidate, April 2000. That would include Obama, Barack H. Obama, The Unauthorized Biography, August 2008. And now joined by the second edition of Surviving the Cataclysm, your guide through the greatest financial crisis in human history. Second edition issued this spring. Look at these at tarpley.net, www.tarpley.net. That is in the process of being upgraded. The upgrade takes a few more weeks, but there'll be all kinds of things there. So get in the habit of taking a look at tarpley.net. And the first time around, go and buy some of those books which are linked at that site. That includes books in German, Japanese, French, Spanish, and Italian versions of various of these books going back to 9/11 Synthetic Terror Made in USA. So both Goldman and J.P. Morgan Chase report profits in excess of $3 billion in one quarter. Even as 1 million American families struggle against foreclosure. And these are banks that have been bailed out. They've been saved by the taxpayer through the U.S. government, our government, the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, privately owned, of course, and the Treasury. We've also got, in addition to the banking situation, 98 banks have now blown this year. 98 banks have been seized so far. Even though these big banks are doing well, right? The banks that are in the state-sponsored compulsory cartel, the other banks, the smaller banks, are reporting. For example, we've got 7,000 community banks that are reporting losses of $2.7 billion, which in many cases for those smaller banks is quite a big deal. I mentioned the credit card defaults are hurting, well, everybody who issues credit cards, all of those losses, and that includes credit card defaults, auto loan defaults, foreclosures, of course, and all the rest. That hits various lenders. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Heavy losses for Capital One. The Goldman profit, $3.19 billion, as we said. Citigroup, $101 million with an M. Poor Citibank, not doing that well, but you get the idea. We're expecting, we have 400 troubled banks on the secret FDIC list, and they're likely to be followed by 1,000 more banks going into insolvency, cleaning out the FDIC trust fund, and that is as the residential real estate crisis continues and is joined now increasingly by the commercial real estate crisis, $500 to $600 billion of leases and related purchases coming due, and the likely default rate on that, at least 1/2 and maybe as much as 2/3. So this is now going on. Wall Street troubled this morning by insider trading charges against Galleon Hedge Fund. We've got a hedge fund hyena who has been caught, thrown to the wolves for some reason. Maybe, we'll find out the real reasons, but undoubtedly also richly deserving of this fate is this character, Rajaratnam, accent on rat, Rajaratnam of Galleon Hedge Fund. He is number 559 on the world ranking of billionaires. He's worth $1.3 billion, and if you were watching CNBC this Friday, October 15th, you saw him doing the perp walk down Wall Street. Well, that's fine. We're waiting for Warren Buffett, Greenspan, Geithner, Summers, and the rest of them. We want to see a chorus line of these finance oligarchs in orange jumpsuits before too long. So this is now Rajaratnam charged in insider trading. This is the Galleon Hedge Fund. 3 other individuals also charged. Some of these people go back to the world of Bear Stearns. And Bear Stearns, there's another Bear Stearns trial going on, and that is the trial of Ralph Cioffi, Ralph Cioffi, money manager at Bear Stearns, is on trial in Manhattan concerning duplicity, malfeasance, when he was running these Bear Stearns hedge funds, which is actually when it all started. Remember? This guy was arrested June 19th, 2008, but the explosion of these funds was about a year earlier. It was in 2007, and that's the beginning of the whole thing, right? Those funds, two hedge funds, brought down Bear Stearns, and then that paved the way for Lehman Brothers to go down, of course, with a big push from Gordon Brown and our British cousins, who were always so solicitous of welfare, always trying to export the depression and beggar their neighbors. So the bailed out banks are getting huge profits. The community banks are generally going down, and worst of all is the situation of the average person, and that we should get more publicity on these outrageous things that are going on. Now, we've also got the derivatives bill, Obama's derivatives bill. This is coming out of the Barney Frank House Committee. The Barney Frank derivatives bill. Now remember, derivatives are the cause, they are the massive cause of this world economic depression. The worldwide derivatives bubble, best estimate, 1.5 quadrillion, 1,500 trillion of derivatives, probably about two-thirds of that here inside the United States. And this is what made this depression a depression. This is what multiplied and caused chain reaction bankruptcies, chain reaction losses across this whole crazy system. The heart of the matter, as far as the U.S. taxpayer is concerned, of course, the single biggest loss that we've had is AIG. Why AIG? Because they had a hedge fund in London, deregulated on the U.S. side and even more deregulated on the British side. And what did the AIG London hedge fund do? It issued derivatives, $3 trillion, one lousy little hedge fund of one insurance company, $3 trillion of derivatives, exceeding the gross domestic product of France and many other countries. And when that blew, that was going to take down the entire system, because the derivatives, the over-the-counter derivatives in particular, mean that a bankruptcy in one place will then drag dozens, hundreds of firms, scores around the world into similar bankruptcy. So that's why the U.S. government intervened. And remember, the people at Deutsche Bank, at Barclays Bank, at Union Bank of Switzerland, at Société Générale of France, they're all thanking you, because they've all gotten between $8 to $12 billion of your money through the TARP, thanks to Tiny Tim Geithner and Hank Paulson and the boys at Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs also got $12 billion on that one. This is the biggest single scandal element in the whole thing. Now, after all that, since we know that the derivatives caused the depression, not subprime mortgages and not anything else, but derivatives, something where the average John Q. Public, Joe Sixpack, Joe Schmo, has absolutely no participation. Individuals, it's a one in a million who's dealing in derivatives. Some people buy options, I suppose, if they're that crazy. But derivatives. So what's the answer from Barney Frank? It's basically one big nothing. There's no ban on derivatives, because the obvious thing to do is to say these are going to be banned at some future time. Ban them. That would be serious. If you can't ban them, well, the Tobin tax. Tax them. 1% tax on derivatives. That's what's being demanded by the Democratic Party of La Jolla, California. And there are other things we can do. We'll be back in a minute to talk more about derivatives